The dreadful things Pope Benedict IX did during his rule. Can you imagine a pope putting the papacy itself up for sale? Well, history tells us that popes did all that and even more at a time when they apparently played a very different set of rules. Yeah, in the case of the 11th century Pope Benedict IX, for example, he was also a poisoner, held orgies at the Lateran Palace, and may have been a demon from hell. Hello, friends. Well, if you often fantasize about the past and really want to know about the history of ancient civilizations, then you're at the right place. Welcome to Unthinkable Past, a channel better known for dishing up the outlandish ancient traditions of all times. Today, we're going to check out the shockingly dirty history of Pope Benedict IX. So better buckle up and let's binge history together. Often referred to as the youngest pope in history, Pope Benedict IX, born Theophylactus of Tusculum, was picked as pope on 3 separate occasions in his lifetime, ruling during a tumultuous period in the church with 7 different papacies over a short period of time. The date of his birth is uncertain, but his first papacy, in 1032, was given to him somewhere between the age of 11 and 20. That's pretty young for a pope, who are on average elected in their 60s. Now imagine the young pope as the tween pope, and you get a good idea of Benedict IX's pontificate. And to tell you the truth, everyone agrees that Benedict IX was awful, as he was the dishonor of being high on the list of history's most corrupt popes. Even the Catholic Encyclopedia, which was marketed to Catholic audiences, was not afraid to call him a disgrace to the chair of Peter. But why? Well, let's dig a bit deeper. Starting with nepotism, resulting in him being a pope. Having been born into a powerful and wealthy Italian family, the Counts of Tusculum, young Theophylactus was the nephew of 2 previous popes, John XIX and Benedict VIII. Well, at the death of John XIX, his brother, Albrecht III, decided to keep the papacy in the family, making papal clothes to fit his young son Theophylactus, and having him consecrated in October 1032. This young man, probably about 20 years old, was a cleric. And that was about his only qualification for the papacy. And unqualified by his youth, his upbringing, his depravity, Benedict IX became one of the very few really disreputable popes. So, what do you guys think of this wholesale bribery? However, Benedict IX acted exactly like you'd expect a tween pope to act, if you expect them to have orgies with animals. As we told you earlier, Benedict IX was not qualified at all, but he'd been raised in a rich aristocratic family that had controlled the papacy for decades, so he knew very well how to use his office to enjoy life. Benedict spent money on prostitutes and played with magic books, and often invited others to his orgies. Even animals were brought in to raise the level of pleasure. His enemies had literally sworn that they had witnessed the young pope consorting with demons at night. Moreover, the 11th century monk that's now considered a saint, Peter Damian, declared, "That wretch, from the beginning of his pontificate to the end of his life, feasted on immorality." Moving on to his sex life and scandals. Do you know that Benedict IX was the first gay pope? Well, imitating John VII in staging licentious orgies, Benedict's sexual relationships with men seem to be beyond reasonable doubt. In his diatribe against sodomy among the Catholic clergy, St. Peter Damian also described him as a demon from hell in the disguise of a priest. And Benedict's pontificate, which was known for homosexual orgies in the Lateran Palace, in fact, turned the Vatican into a male brothel. These, and other excesses, caused such indignation that Benedict IX was deposed in 1045, but then reinstated, only to be deposed again, and then disappeared into such deep obscurity that his actual date of death is still unknown. Let's go into further details. The people of Rome tried really hard to get rid of him due to his erratic behavior and not exactly being the Pope material, if you cared all about the hallowed solemnity the position is supposed to represent. The first major sign of trouble came in 1036, when political opponents tried to kill Benedict in St. Peter's Basilica, but a sudden eclipse ruined the plan, and he fled into exile. Benedict proceeded to Cremona, where he met Emperor Conrad II and received a promise of protection. The German emperor restored him to power before long through his imperial influence, and then Benedict IX stayed in Rome until 1045. However, his bad reputation continued to grow during this period. According to some contemporary sources, he stole, murdered, and committed other unspeakable deeds. Pope Victor III later wrote that Benedict IX had a life as a pope so vile, so foul, so execrable that I shudder to think of it. Fed up with his misdeeds, finally, a mob of Romans drove him out of the city in 1045, though other sources say he was simply toppled by a rival political faction. However, with Benedict IX on the run, a new pope, Sylvester III, appeared on the scene, who was a bishop of Sabina, supported by his enemies. But Benedict refused to give up the papacy and did not sit idle. He had fled for help to his family's base at Tusculum, and within 2 months, his tough Tusculans fought their way into the city, sent Sylvester III back to his diocese of Sabina, and restored Benedict IX. Well. Benedict IX had only enjoyed his second papacy for 6 weeks when he decided that he'd had enough of the papacy, but figured he might as well profit from his office one last time. So, he literally sold the papacy to his godfather, the archpriest John Gratian, for the princely sum of £1,500 of gold, nearly $30 million in today's money. That's how Benedict IX clearly became guilty of simony, the sin of selling spiritual things, and selling the papacy itself, which is equivalent to selling the connection between God and his church, is pretty much the quintessential example of simony. For your interest, let me tell you here that according to some other sources regarding Benedict IX's abdication, he was in fact tormented about the responsibility of being pope, and just took the papacy in the first place because his parents made him do it. I'm sure we can all relate. And according to some historians, Benedict IX wanted to marry his cousin, which he couldn't do as a priest, and thus he resigned. On the other hand, John Gratian, who took the name Gregory VI, might have wished there was a return policy, as the church was so broken in Benedict's tenure that plunderers seized church lands, and the public roads and highways throughout all Italy were thronged with so many robbers that no pilgrims could pass in safety unless strongly guarded. However, his papacy lasted about as long as Sylvester's, but it would take a little longer for Benedict IX to return to power this time. But you know what? At this point in history, even though Gregory VI and Sylvester III were both still alive and claiming to be pope, Benedict IX returned to Rome to reclaim his old position again. So, all 3 of them fought for control of Rome. Each had ecclesiastical supporters, but none had enough for the definitive elevation to the papacy, and Rome revolted. The church and the city could not function without a valid pope. A group then rode to the German King Henry III in 1046, pleading with him to get rid of their popes, to cleanse the sty that was Rome. Here, Henry III had to face 3 potential popes: the sinful Benedict IX, a potential impostor in Sylvester III, and the man who'd bought the papacy, Gregory VI. So, he arrested Sylvester III and had him exiled to a monastery. Gregory VI stepped down, admitting his shameful and simoniacal heresy, which was the work of the devil, and with Benedict IX in hiding, the king appointed a new German pope who lasted 8 months until he died of poisoning. And the prime suspect, yep, you got it right, it's Benedict IX again, committing this dreadful crime. Seizing the opportunity, Benedict IX returned to Rome and ascended to the throne. Interestingly, the cousin he'd wanted to marry turned him down, according to historians, so he could continue with the priesthood. Well, Benedict IX was back in power once again, but his 3rd time as pope literally changed the course of European chronology. His enemies, however, were really fed up of him so far, and after 8 more months in St. Peter's Basilica, Benedict IX fled from Rome when Henry III sent imperial troops to kick him out. Rumor has it that Benedict IX spent his final years in a monastery, Grottaferrata, in his ancestral Alban Hills, repenting. But still, Benedict IX's legacy in church history is certainly terrible, as he frequently appears on lists of the worst popes in history. Even the Catholic Encyclopedia says that Benedict IX was a man of very different character. than his predecessors, and that he was a disgrace to the chair of Peter. Well, there you have it. We hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel without any delay. Make sure you turn on post notifications and also let us know in the comments section about your views on these dreadful deeds of Pope Benedict IX. Thanks for watching Unthinkable Past. Until the next time we meet, continue learning and stay healthy. Goodbye.